Smooch and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show. Your hosts, Troup, Brenson, and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Dude's got a nice voice.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch and special guest Coach Hayes.
Hold on, I got something for you before you go any further.
Do it.
Coach Hayes, Coach Hayes.
There he is.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man.
Yes. Man, we are only a week away till the Dogs start practice. So
come on.
Next week, those guys are going to start practicing. So that's just another step getting closer to the regular season. And you can see it everywhere. You can see it in social media. We've noticed a few things happening on that. And plus, it just feels like schools almost back in session for a lot of these Georgia schools next week as well. And high school football right around the corner. It's too hot to think about anything like that. I don't care if it just says 88 degrees. And maybe it's recency bias, Smooch, but this feels like the most humid summer in my lifetime.
It's been a humid summer. You know what it is when the at least here behind enemy lines in northern Alabama, when you don't have any breaks this year, it feels like in other summers you may get these spells, but there's a break. There's a cold front coming in. You get a little rain, and it's in the 80s for a couple of days. There hasn't been a break. It's just pounding you. Even when it rains, it's hot right now. It's just been pounding you over the head.
Usually we have to wait for August to those dog days in August is what I don't look forward to. This football season's getting going then. That's the only thing, but it doesn't feel pleasant. And, yeah, we've had to deal with that. I hate it for the players who are going to have to deal with it. Maybe, that's something to consider as well. I would not enjoy having pads and helmets on. And they won't immediately. And there are, of course, we know that there are restrictions to when you can practice, and used to did not be. Now there are a lot of restrictions on what you have to do. Is it a trainer's coach that kind of let you know? And in our school, the trainer would let you know if it was too hot.
Yeah, what it's gotten into now with the heat index is I'd rather have a dry hot day than have a humid day when we coached and played, because humidity, man, just sucks the air out of you. It's so, it just seems like it's heavy on your body, and I seem to see more kids just not have very good practices when it was humid. But yeah, they have that sling psychometry bulb that they sling around, tells it what the relative humidity is. That's the reason why you have an acclimation period before you start getting in helmets and pads. You'll just be in helmets only, and that's when you have the T-shirt All-Americans. And then after that, you find out who your tough boys are once they put the pads on. But humid days and hot combined is just tragic for these kids. But if you can just have a hot day, it's not as bad as it is if it's not. The humidity is what kills you. Typically makes practices worse.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's preface this show tonight. We're going to talk about, everything we just mentioned coming soon, the preparation and how that makes the Georgia Bulldogs better than everybody else, and really a standard coaches should look to follow if they
do not want to work. Do not come to the University of Georgia. That's what I thought.
Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about preparation and what that means, and then Coach Hayes is going to break down something that I think is very important to the way Georgia practices. We saw this clip a few weeks ago, and I don't know when it was recorded, but it's Coach Smart talking about one of his most important drills that he uses. And I think it's in the coach's clinic, and he's sharing it with it. We're going to talk about that and break it down a little bit, and that'll be very interesting, especially on YouTube. That'll be something good to follow on YouTube as well.
Definitely, yeah.
And then a little more about Georgia's program, and I had a conversation with a gentleman who is a recruit's dad, and he's got a rising junior right now, and he's been to some camps, and he had an eye-opening experience we want to talk about when he took him to the Georgia camp, and he was not even a Georgia fan. I think he is now, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. and then close the show out with the DFA with the Alabama Crimson Tide. They are it's like Roll Tide Willie is taking over everybody, the zeitgeist, because you got these fanatics who are saying some of the craziest things. You can't have a football conversation when they're in that mindset. And so we got one in particular we're going to spotlight in tonight's show.
Yeah, he was a darling.
I think Alabama sucks.
But
Come on now, Willie.
he is one of these guys. It's just they cannot mask their desperation and hand-wringing over this next, not really this upcoming season. This upcoming season may actually be fine, but it's where they are, what side of the hill you're on, going up it or rolling down it. And but they can't mask it. They try to talk football, but they cannot keep the Georgia Bulldogs out of their mouth. And that's every time I hear that, and we deal with this guy like we did this week, I think of JTS saying, "We are in the good old days." That's where you are right now.
I think you look at it as, I just call it false chatter. You've got people that are trying to justify to feel good about their football program, so the only thing they can do is go to the past. And that's Georgia fans alike, too. Georgia fans will do that, too, at times, where they're trying to go to the past to try to relive those glory moments. And right now, though, I think, as you said, being in the present with the success that we've had, Alabama, all they can do is go to the recent success they had, which was also the SEC championship game. But, that's the only thing that they can look at. The false chatter is there because the pretenses are set up in, where they keep moving the goalposts, where they have some kind of justification to feel better about themselves. And honestly, I'd rather just stay in the current. Stay in the current with where you're at right now and look at what you're about to produce on the field with Kalen DeBoer and your new group of guys that are going to be out there representing your football program this year. And let's talk about that. Let's quit worrying about what happened 3 and 4 years ago and what the what ifs of the world.
Yes. So as we kick this show off, we find ourselves as football fans who are in, like you said, the good old days for the Georgia program. But when we look at some of these other programs, when the question comes to my mind a lot, what makes Georgia elite to where they are right now compared to other schools who have some of the same capabilities? They have administrations that are committed. They have lots of money and fertile ground for recruiting. What makes the difference? And why are some teams – that's why we say you're not entitled to anything, because that coaching staff matters, especially on the college level. It seems like maybe everywhere, but it matters so much with these with running a program to the level that it has to be run. But in terms of the on-field product, what makes Georgia different? And we've been talking about that, Smooch, touching on it here and there. And I think when you talk to players and you talk to other coaches and you talk to people who are on the scene, Georgia prepares differently. And that's not us just saying it because we want it to be true. That's the truth. That's what's going on. That's why Georgia is where they are right now.
And you see players come to Georgia because of how Georgia prepares, and you see players leave Georgia because of how Georgia prepares. They have actually set a bar, a standard so high that it actually filters out dogs and non-dogs. And not many programs have that. Usually a player goes to a program, he gets his panties in a wad about something he didn't get or playing time or whatever it is, and he goes somewhere else. The Dogs literally have players leave and go to other places based on what is demanded of them in preparation, Coach.
And really, you split it into two different groups. You either got a guy that really just wants playing time and going to look for better opportunities because they are so stacked in positions, they got depth out the rear end, or they're not tough enough to play the position and what is asked from them, the level of eliteness that's asked of them from practice to games to preparation. And that's why you see them leave. It's a 50-50 scale. It's one way or the other. People that do go to try to find other opportunities to play because of depth, I applaud them. Let them go. Let them have their opportunities. Let them have the ability to produce somewhere else and be successful. But those kids that just go and then you find them, they just tend to fade away. You never hear about them anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the deal. I don't want to put any kid on the spot. There's one kid in particular I remember. He was such a big recruit and such a big get from Grayson High School, D'Angelo Gibbs.
Yes.
It's been 3 or 4 years ago. You know, he's a 5-star recruit at safety. He comes in, all of a sudden we hear nothing about him. Then he transfers out, goes to Tennessee, and then he fades away in Tennessee's program. That to me tells me more than likely this kid was not making good decisions for himself, but also too, he wasn't ready to compete at the level that they were expecting him to compete at when he came into Georgia. So it's kind of that kind of mentality that I'm talking about, of where you're going to see there's the cream rises to the top, and you're going to see those players like Malachi Starks and what he's done through his 3 years, going in now to a bad year for him, versus one that, like I said, fades away and you never hear from him again. He just becomes another statistic of a 5-star recruit that never pans out.
Excellent.
Yep. And what does that really mean? I think it's more the physical nature of what the demands are, and the constant attention to detail, and just that high standard is repetitive, and it's tough on you physically, tough on you mentally. But that's what Georgia can do. They recruit at such a level that they can demand perfection. Not that you're going to ever have perfect ball players, but they can demand the preparation part of it, and the goal to be better than you would have otherwise. So I think that's the tough thing. And we obviously aren't there to see it on a daily basis. We just hear reports and we see the product on the field, and it looks a lot different. But these players, man, they'll tell you, if you want to win, you come to Georgia. Don't come to Georgia to jack around and win.
Come to the University of Georgia.
I got you, buddy.
You know, you're gonna have a great college experience, but it's gonna be one where you are asked to push yourself to a level that and when you got athletes to the level that Georgia has, some of the greatest athletes in the game, you're going to see some of these things. You're going to see the success Georgia's having right now, and you got the continued thing. It's like that's something you can always hang your hat on. You know, you don't have these roller coaster seasons where where you lose 5 games one year and in the next year you got a shot because you got the right quarterback in there, or all the pieces have to match up, which most programs are like that. All their pieces have to match up for them to have a championship run. And Georgia's just the way they go about their business. They're in contention every year.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm never going to question Coach Smart who he puts on the field anymore. Being able to look at their practice script, even though it's older scripts that I get to see through different things that they produce out there in the football clinics of the world. I watch what they do at practice, and to me, I know without a shadow of a doubt the 11 to 13 kids that you're going to see going on the field and play and rotate in, whether it be at the defensive line level, the linebacker level, or in the secondary, you're going to see, to me, he's got the best guys on the field. He's watched it week in and week out, and I'm never going to question that ever again about someone who's playing who I think shouldn't be playing, and it shouldn't be questioned anymore, honestly, because I see what he watches at practice day in and day out. He knows what he's producing in practice. He knows who those guys are going to be, your dogs versus your wannabes. And no matter the talent level that you have, you still got to be able to execute. And that's something I will never question again at all.
Yeah, he proved that he would not put guys on the field based on their stars. And I think that's because Georgia fans love to complain. But when you've got a shiny 5-star sitting the bench and there's a 3-star, a Jordan Davis, for instance, in the game, people don't understand what's going on until they end up getting drafted in the first round of the draft. But Troup, I was going to say to this, speaking of this whole thing, let's not leave out the role of the veteran players bringing up the young bucks. Think about Malachi Starks coming in, starting in his very first game, making that ridiculous interception against Oregon, right? And think about this, Troup. Chris Smith is to Malachi Starks, as now Malachi Starks is to KJ Bolden. Right. I mean, we've been celebrating the youth of Malachi. He's now the leader. He's the guy back there in the back end. And he's got a guy of his same ilk in terms of talent. And now he's responsible for saying, listen, this is how you get on the field as a freshman. This is how you contribute. Those types of things only come from that type of preparation and culture, Troup.
Yep. And I'm right there with Coach. I don't question this coaching staff as much as I used to would question things that I thought I knew or thought I could see, because I feel very confident they see everything they need to see during practice. And people can say, well, it's just practice. You can put him in a game and he might be a gamer. You got to earn it in practice. And we don't get to see all that. There's some players who are like, we're so ready to see this guy get on the field and do his thing. And you may see him get in for a play here and there. And he looks good in those plays that he gets in here and there. But what we don't know is that the coaching staff has a plan for each these players. And he's like, give him spoon feed him, give him some success. And you don't want to put him in a position where he's going to cost you. Just put him in positions to succeed.
Yeah.
That's good. Very well said.
All right. We're going to move along. And it does piggyback right on. And we saw something a few weeks ago where it called it Millennial Oklahoma drill. And I think Coach says it's more of the perimeter Oklahoma drill because the game's changed. And your practice should reflect what you do on the field. And we're going to take a look at that. And I'm going to give Coach and Smooch a few minutes to talk about this drill that he shared at a coach's clinic. Very interesting to me.
Well, what we're doing, if you're watching, through the YouTube channels, through the visual channels, we're going to be showing you some script work at practice. If you're listening through podcasts, you can just hear the concepts of what we're trying to do. And this is something that back in the time when you had 21 personnel a lot, 2 backs, 1 tight end, split backs, pro set where you had a true fullback, true tailback, very much reminiscent of what Georgia ran back in the early 2000s when Mark Richt took over. When you had a drill basically that was about this time of the year in the summertime where you basically lined down good on good and you said, by God, whoever wins is the Dawgs. And you lined up 3 guys on offense, 3 guys on defense, and one was going to block you out of the picture or you were either going to defeat your offensive guy. You had a linebacker lined up against a running back and the running back had to make the linebacker miss so the linebacker would kill the running back. And you could also do combinations with defensive backs and wide receivers. Well, we don't have that kind of game anymore. Everything's out of the gun now. So what they see is an extension of the run game by running fast screens, quick screens, flare screens, just quick tempo stuff that's really just an extension of the run game. And what they do is Coach Smart basically sets this up in 2 different drills. One drill he sets up just as, okay, we're going to do this rapid fire where we're going to line up and we're going to run 3 receiver progressions with either the back getting it or a receiver getting it out of fast screen concepts or jailbreak screen concepts where you'd release linemen, but it's still blocked by just your perimeter guys. And you have those same perimeter guys outside over the top of everything, a corner, safety, and an apex linebacker typically. So it's 3-on-3, defeat your blocker, and get to the football. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about defensively. It's tough because as a defensive coordinator, I always wanted to make it uncomfortable for your defense. I didn't want them to know what was coming, because if you can make the defense stress and they react and make a play, you know what you've got in that defensive player because they're not going to panic under pressure when they get put into those situations. But it's great because not only are you teaching toughness out of that because of what they're seeing day in and day out when you got a lot of RPO type teams, you got teams that like to get it out on the perimeter where they're going to get it into playmakers' hands and just make that guy outrun a linebacker and make a safety miss. You've got to be fundamentally sound when you attack blockers so that you have leverage. And the leverage is not very good, but your outside leverage guy. So he's able to split that. He should be coming up and taking that on a little bit quicker and making the wide receiver bounce either into him or back towards his leverage to the inside. Doesn't do a good job of squeezing. Right here, it's actually a pass play. So now you're in basically either 1-man or 2-man possibly. I think in this case scenario, it'd be a 1-man. So everybody's in man-to-man. So they can't react all the time to it being a run or a pass. Now, on the backside here, what I like about this is you have your man on an island, but your number one issue here is your free safety now, who's in the cover 1 or the cover 3 robber that I like to call this, is going to be watching his tackles. Just like linebackers watch guards to read run reacts, your free safety reading the tackle helps him understand that if it's an RPO and this team's RPO heavy, that he can actually get downfield and help to the inside receiver to either bracket or maybe rob, as we like to call it, that inside receiver on the RPO if the quarterback decides to pull because the corner play side to the short side of the field is locked down his receiver. So you can see here the tackle is a graduate assistant or an assistant working on. He's right here towards us on the G emblem. The free safety is reading that tackle to determine whether you've got a run read or a pass read. If it's a run read, he's going to come downhill and bracket with that number 3 receiver, just like you see right here, the tackle beginning to act like he's blocking. And now that free safety reads that and gets a rep in this, all while your backside defensive back is getting his rep one-on-one on Gilligan's Island. And of course, the quarterback can decide what he wants to do here. But because he gets a run read, now the free safety can come downhill and steal, or that's why I call rob, that slant or whatever's coming behind it. He doesn't want a free safety in the middle of the field guarding green. So he's wanting him to help, because you got to understand there's probably somebody in man right here on this guy as well. So you're bracketing that, therefore robbing it, and you're stealing that slant or whatever it may be.
That's what I was going to ask, Coach. So, yeah, drill down on that a little bit. So in this drill, when you're talking about like a Tennessee or whatever it is, that spread out thing, that's kind of what we're practicing for here. How does Kirby likes to dictate through defense. So how does that happen through the use of this drill?
Well, offensive linemen are going to be your first initiators to tell you whether you've got a run-pass concept. So if it's pass, they're going to be level's going to be low. Their pad level's going to be low. They're going to be stepping out across the line of scrimmage to block. So what happens with that, the free safety is not going to sit in the middle of the field high in the middle of the field and guard grass. He's going to come downfield, and he's either going to fit the run or he's going to steal what I call, that's the reason why I call it robber. He's going to steal that inside number 3 receiver that's running the quick slant off of the non-give to the running back, because the quarterback's decided to pull up the RPO and throw to the quick slant or the quick out. It puts another defender, another hat to the football. It's just like how linebackers read guards to determine, hey, we got the ball going one way or the other. It's either going to be, they're pulling gap scheming one way, or if it's just straight on blocks. They have the ability to fit off of that. What I love that he makes the free safety do is read the offensive tackle to the trip side. So if he steps out to run block, now he comes downhill to rob. But if he pass sets and pass pro, now he gets to the middle of the field and he becomes that cover 1 safety. He's in a zone bracketing over the top of people that are in man-to-man. So you got man-to-man chasing those receivers, and he's sitting over the top watching the quarterback's eyes now and able to help wherever that ball is going to in what we call a bracket. So he's either robbing or he's in his true zone because your backside guy is on an island. So what Kirby does, it makes it so efficient, is that you never want in defensive drills, you never want kids just sitting around. So you're going to get as many drills going as quickly as you can. So as soon as those 3-on-3 rotate out, he goes to the backside, makes his free safety in the middle of the field read the tackle with a GA or some type of quality control guy that's doing the tackle reads for him, while the backside DB is playing man-on-man to the X receiver working man drills. And then they flip it back over to the other side. And this is constantly, guys. He's probably getting 25 to 30 reps in one period. Now, when you have periods in college football, same thing in high school, periods are 5 minutes a piece. So in 5 minutes, he's getting 30 reps of this Oklahoma drill, which teaches the meanness concept. By God, it's man on man. Get off your guy, make the tackle, or be blocked. And then secondly, you're working on technique responsibilities of run versus pass. So you're getting both scheme and you're getting the meanness and you're getting the feeling of what it means to be the players that he's going to have on the field on Saturday afternoons and in the evenings, because they've shown him practice 60 to 70 times in one practice. So you think about they practice 4 or 5 times, that could be over 300 reps they have in that drill. We only get a sample size of about 60 plays in a game. So that's the reason why it's so important to be able to evaluate it from a practice perspective, to know who your dogs are versus who your pretenders are. And it comes from just getting rep after rep after rep. Coach Smart does such a great job. He's sitting there with a safety in one play, trying to coach him up, holding him by his shorts, saying, be patient, be patient, be patient. And then he kicks him. It's almost like he pushes him in the back to go to the ball, like try to rob the ball. I love it because he's right in the middle. In fact, he's in the middle of the play. So when they rep to the other side, him and the safety have to squat down and get out of the way of the quarterback roll so that the safety can read the number 3 receiver on the rob. So it's so cool watching that, because that happened so many times when I was coaching too, where I'm trying to coach a kid up during a rep and then it flips over and then you have to get out of the way so you're not in the way of the track of the football going to the receiver on the backside. So that's what Oklahoma to him has gone to. It's fundamentally sound. It's getting reps. It's reading react, but it's also getting those much needed reps from those guys to see all those pass run reads. And you can, I'm a proponent of this, and I rarely make really strong judgments about any coach or a program without seeing lots of practice. And so my background's more in baseball, but I've watched so many baseball practices over the years with different levels and different coaching staffs. And it was always evident
just in practice who was going to be successful, because the successful coaches, they will put you in game type situations and they will stress you. They will stress you over and over with something that is very reflective of what you're going to see in the game. It's no garbage or wasted time. And that's always, I think it's the same throughout different sports. And I think that's what Kirby Smart, that's why I like this drill, because it really feels like that. Kirby Smart, like you said, is not like sitting in the front row on his Twitter page. He's right in the middle of it, demanding what he wants from these players.
No, I agree wholeheartedly.
I was thinking about that exact thing, Troup. When you think about a defensive concept, and you think about a team getting into a game and seeing something that they're not successful at, that some offense that's eating them up, and then they react to it. Kirby Smart doesn't exactly react. He chooses a different method of attack. And that is a huge difference in where we are today with these explosive offenses in the game, where seemingly everybody can score and everybody's all spread out. Kirby Smart just changes attack methods. He's not reacting to you. He's saying, okay, you're doing okay against this. We're going to attack this way. And that's the type of mindset that I'm sure it started before 2021, but that 2021 defense exemplified that they were the focal point of the game. It wasn't how is Georgia going to stop them. It was how are they going to do anything against Georgia.
And too, there's nothing better as a coach when you watch a kid who maybe messes up a couple of times and then they come back the next day and they fix it. That's the beauty of coaching, because you can take a kid and not every kid's going to be perfect, because like I said, when you put a stressor on them and they don't react as fast as you'd like for them to, that's the coaching moment. And then all of a sudden those kids pick up on it. He was talking about it the other day. You got so many 5-star talents that come in that are so athletic, but yet they don't have the patience and understanding, the cerebral part to it that you need for them to have in order to be fully at 100% to execute. Right. And he said when that light bulb kicks on and you got that free safety now reading that tackle correctly and knowing where to run fit to and knowing where to rob to, all of a sudden it just makes you tremendously better in that position. And you see that kid, the light bulb come on. That is a beauty of coaching, man. That's the kind where you go give the high fives and the back bumps, and you just get really excited watching a kid mature right in front of you. I've said that so many times, and I'm kind of getting a little giddy goosebumps just thinking about it, because I've seen it so many times where you coach them up and you talk to them, and in one day they make an improvement, or they make the improvement the very next play, the very next rotation. So good stuff, man. So
do you notice it being more difficult? I notice this in baseball as well. It's actually a touch more difficult. Someone that is supremely athletically gifted. Sometimes it's more difficult to teach very basic fundamentals to them because they've never needed them. They've been the best player every time they walked onto the field. And so for the first time, they're being corrected, sometimes for the first time in their life as an athlete.
You've got to coach them even harder, Smooch. You've got to coach them even harder. And they're not ready for that. I can't tell you how many times we had kids on our team that we knew was going to be the man. And I would fire him daily just to let him know, to humble him and let him know that he wasn't necessarily the only person out there trying to execute what we wanted to do defensively. Right. Now, I'd go to him, love on him, talk to him. We'd bring him back in, corral him, and before you knew it, everything would be fine. But humbling a kid who is an elite talent, who may have just been living on that elite talent alone, but now all of a sudden has got to execute and have that more cerebral part of the game, there's nothing wrong with being sort of what I call tough love for that kid. And honestly, the kid will respect it as time goes on.
Oh yeah.
To me, that's the fork in the road. If a kid respects that and learns from that, that's a kid you can coach. That's a kid that's going to be part of your program. That's a kid that's not going to be someone that you see later on down the road going to the transfer portal and then fade away. I think that's a very important point that you make.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Love it. Love it. We've been talking about breaking this exact drill down for a while now. I'm glad we finally got to talk about it. I'm excited to watch it as well and hear Coach go through it. Anything else we want to talk about with you, Coach? Was anything else on your mind to discuss tonight?
Nothing. It's really nice to see all the promos going on with that Georgia football on Twitter, showing them those guys running the stadium steps. And to me, this is where, I call it the rubber meets the road. We're going to see those kids sweating it out, getting after it. We're going to hear those little hints of people spotlighting and highlighting as we get closer and closer. I mean, what are we now? Under 40 days to the game against Clemson. So, I mean, this honestly, they're beginning to get in prep work for all the things that they've been working on for Clemson already, but now they're going to start putting in game plans and all the conditioning's over with. And I don't want to call it the hay been in the barn yet, but it's time for them to get out there and start going to work. And that's very exciting to know that it's football season, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so close.
Cannot wait. Coach, tell us where we can find you on social media.
Hey, guys, I appreciate, first off, y'all having me.
Oh, man, come on.
It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. You can find me on all social media platforms at Coach Hayes Hudl. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm putting stuff up right now on Recruits of the Week. We've got a lot of new commits, and we got a lot more coming, I promise you. And so if you get a chance, check that out. Me and Coach, excuse me, I say Coach, I'm used to saying it, but me and John are on the Dog Dispatch as well at thedogdispatch.com, and can't wait to get that started. We're behind. You guys are 100 episodes in. I mean, we started our deal in January, so now this is going to be our first full season getting under our belt working on that podcast. So very excited to see the future of where this goes, and definitely excited to see how the Dog Show is kicking tail and taking names. Love it.
Hey, the Dog Dispatch is a must listen for anyone listening to us. I think pretty much everybody that follows us follows you guys anyway. Mm-hmm. But I did want to say before we cut Coach loose, since he brought up recruiting, guys, there's really good news coming on the defensive line. Just be patient and don't Georgia fan and be panicked that Alabama has this recruiting. No, there's some really good news. There's two really good news is coming. Just be cool and have some fun.
You might have to be patient on one of them all the way up maybe to December. But
maybe till Christmas,
Yeah, but be patient with it. I agree with you, Smooch, no doubt.
Yeah.
Coach, thanks for all you do, brother. Thanks for hopping on with us tonight. We enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you guys for having me. Y'all have a blessed night. Take care.
See you, brother.
Take care, brother. All right. Thank you, Coach Hayes. That's just what I was hoping when we planned this show, that he would get on there and just tear into that preparation part.
Oh, man, he nails it, doesn't he?
The Oklahoma drill, man. It's a new day. It's a new offense, and the defense. I just love the way we attack those things with the physical nature, because that's what you're not going to have a physical team ever if you don't practice that way. You've got to be ready to strike a player, strike each other. You got to be able to hit, and there's some sacrifices to be made with that. All players aren't built that way. For one thing, they just don't want to do it.
Right.
But you may have some injuries here and there, and you have to be able to absorb those. And you better be able to recruit very well, like Georgia has. So
being cerebral and aggressive, that's almost impossible to coach. A lot of kids are born with it, and that's the reason they have success. But Kirby has actually shown the ability. I think of Channing Tindall. I think that to me is the epitome of someone that Kirby Smart took and coached into a football player. Now, he had the athletic ability, but we're not talking about Jalen Carter. We're not talking about Nakobe Dean. These guys those guys would have been something no matter where they went. You understand what I'm saying? Like, no matter what school they went to, they would have been successful players in some way. But you think about these players that, because of the coaching and the prep they got, what they became, and we're seeing it. And it's going to be interesting to see who that next crop is. And I got a feeling these next 3 years, you're going to see defense on a huge upswing with the guys that are coming in.
Yes. I do have a story, Smooch, as we continue this, talk about preparation as we lead up to practice next week. Me and my wife were at a coffee shop yesterday morning, and it's about 10 o'clock, and a gentleman that I know is a couple years older than me, and we played ball together, basketball in particular. Back in the day when I was still able to do that.
To jump?
Teenage years. Yeah, to jump, put myself through that. But anyway, but he's always been around the sports programs. He's had a couple of kids come through. He's had a big gap. I think he had one of his kids was a quarterback for Swainsboro back about 2008, 2009, and a DB, and very good. And he's got another kid that's coming through right now as a junior. And so we just always chat about football. But he was like, I didn't realize that, because I had talked to him before about his kid for baseball, because he played on a baseball team too. just a big kid. And he is grown. He's 6'3", 315 pounds. And
okay, that's a big kid.
he's a big kid, and he's going to be a tackle at the high school level, probably right tackle, I think, where they got him. He'll be left, I'm not sure. But so he just went on to tell me, and he's wearing an Alabama hat as we're talking.
Okay.
And I don't care because he's not, it's not nothing like that. There's no, nothing that rivalry with us.
But he does. He knows who you are, though, right? He knows your Georgia personality. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but he tells me about his experience in going to camps, and all these coaches are calling him. He's like, "Hey, we want to get your son on campus. Come on down to our camp," and because they want to evaluate the kid. And so he told me about him going to one of Kirby Smart's camps just recently, and he went in there without. Not disdain, but he just had he already had
like pessimistic
notions.
Yeah.
He had some preconceived notions.
There you go.
For other reasons. And like I said, not being a Georgia fan, but it's freaking Kirby Smart camp. So it wanted to give them an opportunity to see his kid.
Sure.
And he toured the state. First of all, he was just amazed and Scott Fitzgerald has told us about this before, how everything is designed. And everything is run so professional. Even when you got tons and tons of people there, it is hard to make all that work seamlessly. He was very, very surprised by that, how the Georgia staff carried that out. He was also very surprised that Georgia's coaching staff, Kirby Smart included, were very integral and a part of everything they did. But he just had some conversations with some alumni there, and just being close to Kirby Smart and close to Coach Searles as well. He had a lot of conversation with Coach Searles, and they talk on the phone. And Kirby has called him a few times, and they're very honest with you. They don't. That's why he was surprised, because talking to other coaching staffs, they tell you what they think you want to hear.
Interesting.
And so when you get a coaching staff who's very truthful, even to their detriment sometimes, it stands out.
Right.
And so they told him, they said, well, your kid's 6'3", 315 pounds. He may have Coach Smart was saying, unless he grows, these tackles nowadays are 6'6", 6'7".
It's the arm length they have to have.
And the reach. He said, unless your kid got 5 more inches in him, he said, no, I think he may have an inch, maybe. And he's telling him, honestly, I don't think he can play tackle here at Georgia.
Right.
Now, can cross train him, and he could play center. Mm-hmm. But unless he grows, we want to keep following him, but I can't make an offer right now. And so he was like, wow. And that's not what everybody else is telling him, but just that honesty. And then he got a chance to watch Coach on the megaphone and how he deals with all these players.
Now,
these are high school players.
Let's point out before you finish. I know how the story goes, by the way, in case you wonder where I'm jumping in. but let's point out that at this point he has seen other camps where the head coach wasn't even involved, where you've got graduate assistants out leading these camps. That is the mindset, the modus operandi he is used to at these camps. And then he goes to the Georgia camp, Troup.
Yes, and so his kid got to go up in drills and plays against, I think it was a lot of times it was players who were already on Georgia's campus. And so maybe a redshirt freshman.
Wow. But
he said just the difference. And first of all, difference in size. When you look at some of the players Georgia has on campus, he thought his kid was big, and plus his dad is 6'4" himself. But these guys towered; they were monsters, and just to see those guys in the weight room. But then the intensity that they practice with, he said, my son could tell immediately that he had to push himself even farther to get. I mean, he's only a junior, but he started seeing dividends very soon in the next camp he went to. But I think what I wanted to get to next was the way Coach Smart interacted with parents and with these kids. And it's the same way, because these kids from all walks of life, it's not just Georgia kids, they're from all over the country. He talked about it, a kid being from the Northeast that came down from Massachusetts, and he came down not ready. He came down, and his mom was from some private school, and his mom was, and maybe he can tell this story at some point, but his mom was not used to the colorful language that these coaches down here, and Coach Smart would not mince words or change it for anybody. So he's going to use some buzzwords that she was not comfortable with. Well, it got back to Coach Smart that she was complaining about it. He calls the kid over. The kid's got no idea. He calls the kid over. Hey, come over here. He's on the megaphone, and he calls. He kind of calls out the situation. Looks like your mom doesn't really appreciate, our colorful language. He said, "Why don't you go over and sit with her for a little bit and see, And he sends him. He doesn't send him home, but he sends him over there to sit with his mom just to make a point.
Yeah.
And he had another kid come up. He said that he got there, and he's got on Crocs and pajamas, and he's like,
"Oh no!"
He's like pajama pants, and he's like, "Oh, you need to go to bed. You're not ready." He said, "No, I think he sent this kid home. Just said, you done. You didn't come here with the right mindset to work. See you." Just like that. Just like that.
That's amazing.
And so it's just like he does with his players. He's going to hold you to a level that you've never held yourself. He's going to hold you accountable. And if you're not ready, he told these kids, he said, if you can't hack this, if you can't do what I'm asking you to do, if you can't push yourself, if I see you put your hands on your hips or your hands in the air, you're not ready. Go to Alabama.
Wow. Oh my gosh. He told him to go to Alabama.
Go to Alabama. It
Go play for
easier.
Kalen. Yeah.
It's going to be easier than what you're going to get here.
That's so interesting.
We're not trying to whisper sweet nothing's in your ear to keep you here. Go to Alabama if you can't hack it here, because they're going to find out. They want to find out very soon.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have honest conversations with you. And I thought, and that's a turnoff for some people, Smooch.
Yeah, I would think that when it's interesting to me that most teams would say, we're gonna candy your rear end to get you here, and then you'll find out how hard we work. Then we'll work you hard. And on the other hand, you got Kirby saying, this is how hard we work. We do this exponentially harder every day. If you like it, great. If you can hack it, great. If not, check out Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. That's absolutely beautiful.
It was. I was just listening, and he took over an hour away from our breakfast. So my wife was fine with it because she was on her phone doing different things. But I sat there, ate my breakfast, and just listened to him talk. And I was like, man,
yeah.
And I said, dude, you get it. I said, you get it. Even though you are your kid's biggest advocate, you know where he stands. And he said, you know what? The next camp we went to, I think said he went to Georgia Southern, and he dominated. He got the camp MVP. MVP, he said, because he raised his level up.
An offensive guard got the MVP at his next camp. Well, yeah. But guard at the next level. Yeah, I got it.
So he was that good, and he said he paid a lot of it to what he learned at Georgia and how they pushed him and what he knew he had to expect of himself. And like I said, he wasn't a Georgia fan, and he had some reasons that had nothing to do with this group right now or anything, but he left with a new appreciation, and he just knew that if I send my kid here, he's going to be the best that he can be. It's going to be tough if he is able to come play for Kirby Smart, but he's not going to leave any stones unturned, and Kirby Smart is going to push him. So I love that, and I love that he was a guy who had some preconceived notions that got just dismissed right away. And Georgia that's what he was telling me. The bottom line is what he was telling me. Georgia does it different than everybody else.
That's exactly it.
Not a rumor.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. Because what it means is that in this world where every team, they kind of seem to homogenize when you get up to the big teams. But the idea that Georgia has differentiated itself that significantly from all the other teams. Only Tate Ratledge can say it.
But if you want to win,
come to the University of Georgia.
And there you
are.
So
it wasn't just the intensity that he saw. It was attention to detail, like we always say. Attention to detail and the honesty from the coaching staff, and that the coaching staff was right there engaged to be able to talk to parents, to be able to talk to players, to be able to coach them. Just like, Scott Fisher mentioned it when his son went to a camp a few weeks ago, that he's there coaching him like he coaches his own team. He doesn't take a break. He's not just just there as a face.
A lot of guys just show up for pictures, right? Even at some of these larger camps, they just come in for pictures on the last day. That's not what we're talking about here.
So love that.
You probably don't even want a picture with him by the end of it.
He probably scared you to death. You're not built right. He weeds you out, man. And I come up in high school baseball, and I played for a Hall of Fame high school baseball coach. And he was the same way. He would weed the weak links out early. The first 2 weeks of practice, he was going to find out who couldn't put themselves in uncomfortable positions through just physical. Man, I'm just telling you, it was rough. He put us through some rough practices, and lots of players quit. But you knew what you had at the end of those days, and then you could start really baseball practice. That was a lot of times just conditioning and stuff, and we'd weed them right out. They'd get mad with him and say a few choice words, and he'd say, hit the hill. See you. There were some good players that never played on our team. We were a state championship level team, but you can do that when you're at the top, and I love to see it. Let's move along those, Smooch, and we have one of the most popular segments in all of sports, the DFA.
So delusion is a fixed false belief that doesn't change in light of conflicting evidence.
They don't know reality from their dream worlds, and they won't go outside and play.
A fixed false belief that is not grounded in reality.
Music to our ears, the delusional fan alert. Oh, Smooch was on Twitter the past couple of days, and we don't really start fights. Sometimes we respond to somebody else's post or have some fun with it, or we put something out and they respond. But most times this is about having fun conversation, go back and forth a little bit. But then that does bring those fanatics, out of the woodwork. And lately, as the season gets closer, the Alabama fans seem like they're in their feelings and trying to protect something. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. I'm just perusing. I think I mentioned this in the pre-show. I'm just perusing Twitter looking for anything that's not political right now. Guys, can we start talking football again? If you follow the Dawgs show, please talk football. I get it. Everything's messed up. You know what makes me happy? Not talking about it and talking about football. That's kind of the reason we have a show that's not about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's about football. Okay, so anyway, I'm checking out our brother in Dawgs, JT, the dog father. Right, so I'm over. Great stuff, by the way. Great stuff. You follow him on TikTok or Twitter. Great stuff. Anyway, I'm over there, and he shares an article that popped up that's like, though they'll never admit it, Georgia knows they were lucky to win the national title against Alabama, and it's back to that tired old refrain, as old as time, that Bama had an injured wide receiver. They couldn't win. Yeah, it never ends, right? Let's not talk about injuries for Georgia in the SEC title game. You don't hear Georgia fans complain about that at all, but here we are years out, and we're still talking about it. So Dogfather JT, he shares that, like 3 years later, and they're still crying. And this one chosen soul, his name is Roll Tide Joe.
No kidding, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide Joe. I believe he is Willie's illegitimate nephew.
There's nothing illegitimate happens in Alabama.
No. So anyway, he jumps in and takes up for the article as only a delusional fan from Alabama can, because with Alabama delusion comes entitlement. It's usually only reserved for Ohio State, but Bama's eaten up with it too.
And I just don't think there's that many history teachers that are Alabama fans on our Twitter page, but it seems like, Smooch, there are a whole lot of history professors in that Alabama fan base.
Right, that's all they have. So when they beat you, they're the best team in college football. When they don't win a national title, they used to be the best team in college football, and no one will ever measure up. And that's all they do. And then when Georgia wins a title, they actually claim credit for that. They're going to claim credit if Oregon like we expect Oregon to advance deep into the playoff this year. They're going to claim credit for that as well. And so I simply said, hey, Georgia finished above Alabama again this year. Georgia had Georgia had one 3-point loss, and yes, it was to Alabama. But Georgia had a better season this year than Alabama did. Georgia won its bowl game. Georgia only lost once, and it was only by 3 points. Now, to me, that's very rational. That's a rational thing to say. At the point, Roll Tide Joe then turns his illegitimate rage from JT toward the dog show and says, pups. By the way, he thinks this is a huge insult. He calls us
He does,
pups.
doesn't he?
I love being called a pup. It's
He thinks-
adorable.
Yeah, go ahead, my bad.
Pups can put fewer losses than the Tide in 3 straight seasons. Yeah, that's good. Well, I don't know. He says that like it's an empty accomplishment. And he said, well, the Tide was 2023 SEC champs. By the way, the Tide and Georgia both did equally well in winning the national championship last year. So I never thought Alabama would be claiming to an SEC title when they got thumped by Michigan.
That's right. They're telling you right there that their standard slipped.
That's exactly right. Like, as if to prove our point, there's a slipping standard. And then here's how he tags something at the end, calling us either pups or little bro. He
likes saying little bro. Little bro, pups.
He thinks that's something. It's adorable. Face it, pups are little bro. That's why you guys keep up with that type of stuff. Now, he's talking about win-loss records. That type of stuff. So he's actually not understanding why we look at the statistics and standings. And I tried to explain to him that's because it's called math. That's what we hear, with arithmetic and basic knowledge. That's how you judge who the better team is. I think Roll Tide Joe thinks that you become a playoff contender strictly by being Alabama. Okay, Troup, I'm going to tell you, this is one of the craziest things I've heard on the Delusional Fan Report since we started it.
I can't wait.
Here it comes. Now, I mentioned the fact that Bama hasn't really done anything since before 2020. That 2020 season was nothing. COVID season, no fans in the stands. Short season.
You got a team playing 6-7 games in the regular season.
You got teams playing 6-7 games. That don't count. If you take away that bogus Alabama title, it's been a long time since they were in serious contention for a title. And so I mentioned that to him. So, Troup, you're going to love this. As a matter of fact, I need my laughter for this. Where did I do with it? Let's see if I can find it. There we go. So, Troup, this guy, rather than say, he chooses to come back. So I say, Alabama hasn't done anything in a while. And he says this, well, how about the fact that the Pups haven't won a championship since 2022?
He got us.
He got us. You got us, man.
You win, brother. You got us.
Yeah, we took a year off.
Argument's over.
And so the Dogs won in 2021 and 2022. And he says, you haven't won a title since 2020. You know, that's only one season. But that's another thing. It comes up in a little bit. He doesn't understand that. Let me see. Let me find some other ones. I'll fly through a few of these.
Yeah, it was just that he kept saying, and I called him out at some point on it because he kept saying little bro
and pups.
And I was like, that doesn't really, it's not really hurtful if you say that, but it does point out that to belittle somebody, if you're on the same level, why would you do that? If you were superior, it points out an inferiority complex and insecurities. Right. It really does.
It's a chihuahua barking at a pit bull. That's exactly what it is. And so I said, you mean Georgia's won 2 out of the last 3 national championships. Most Dogs fans would take that. Most any team would take that, but considering Alabama has never won back-to-back natties in a playoff era. And this is where his lack of knowledge of what math or calendar comes up. He goes, that's weird. I thought the Dogs got blown off the field in 2020. Yeah, because we're talking about 2021 and 2022. 2020 is a different year. That's that COVID asterisk year. But anyway, it just got more and more delusional. You would have, this is a good one. You would have thought that the Pups won it all last year. The way this fella, he's talking about you, the way this fella is talking. I'm not panicked and jealous over the Orange Bowl. They have delusions of grandeur. You would have thought the Pups won it all this last year. And I said, no, we just know we're the better team. Look, you won by 3 points. We know we're the better team, and you do too. If the Dogs and Bama play 10 times, Georgia wins 7 of those games. You won. No one's taking it away. You don't hear the Dogs complaining about all of the injuries we had to Brock Bowers and our top 2 receivers. You don't hear any of that like you guys do about Jameis Williams and his little knee a few years ago.
Well, anytime that and we weren't even pushing. We were just making rational statements.
Yes.
He kept throwing those. I said, we won 2 national championships since you won any championship. I mean, you can count an SEC championship, but we're talking about national championships at this point. That's how we measure each other. Okay, we won 2 of them since you won one. And then he kept throwing out the record, Kirby Smart's record against Coach Saban and Georgia's record against Alabama and how many trophies they've won in the past. That's where it always goes when you lose, when you lost the argument. It's the history lesson, and I thanked him for the history lesson, and for him to just enjoy that Kalen DeBoer era, the post Nick Saban era. Just enjoy that, and because that football lesson you're trying to teach me won't matter when we have to play football this year. Now, I told him that I do not know a team, and we're talking about history. That's fine, but I don't know another program who would trade places with Alabama before they traded places with Georgia.
There you go.
Georgia is doing it Alabama beat Georgia last year. If you watch football in the past few seasons and you know what's going on, you know that Georgia is in a much better place than Alabama is. They're
so much better.
Excuse me, their coaching and their stability. Everything is clicking for Georgia. We don't know. We could see the decline in the Saban years. And Eric from the Bulldog Report pointed out the numbers that showed that as well.
Yeah, we'll put that up right here. We'll put that up right here.
The margin of victory went from 28-29 to 15 last year, and it had been declining. So that tells you that you may be still winning some of these games, but you're not dominating. You're winning some close games, and winning's the ultimate thing. But in terms of if you're looking for trends and where your program is, and then you lose the greatest coach of all time, people say, and that's probably true, you're not going to get better by losing Nick Saban.
There you go, brother.
So where you are right now is what we're concerned about. I've said it many times before, too, is we can't predict we're going to win championships just because we won a championship in 2021, 2022. That doesn't make it where, we are entitled to do that. You still got to take care of practice and recruiting and get things done on the field.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're prepared for that. They want to lean heavy on what they've done in the past.
Yeah. Well, you can see right. Yeah, you can see right here his desperation to wrap his arms around that SEC title that they won by 3 points. He's just desperate for it. And the Alabama team that was once great would have considered a year where they squeaked past the SEC title game and lost, but didn't get to play for a national championship. They would have considered that a failure, as Georgia considered last year a failure. They didn't win the title. Georgia was the best team in football. Georgia would not have lost to Texas, Michigan, or Washington. They wouldn't have lost to those teams. But they didn't get a chance to prove it because they didn't take care of business when they needed to against Bama. You take it, you learn from it, you get better. But the fact that Bama players, notice Troup, they're not focused on the beatdown Michigan gave them. They're focused.
Talk about that.
They're focused on that SEC title that they can snuggle up with. But
they got 6 losses the past 3 years. Is that what it is?
6 losses, 3 times the number of 300% more losses than Georgia over the last 3 years.
So
and
that pretty much tells you what you need to know if you're trying to compare
everything.
these teams. And yeah, we want to beat Alabama. When these two teams play each other, a lot of times it's for the highest stakes. And Alabama's a good program. You're going to have close games, and anything can happen. You can lose a game you should win, or you win a game you should lose. We've seen it both ways. But I don't think those numbers are going to – I think Georgia is ready to eclipse a lot of that. It's got to happen on the field, but I'm excited about it. I like having these guys remind us that there is a lot of insecurity in that Alabama fan base.
Oh my gosh, it was so obvious everywhere. I'll help you with your insecurity, Roll Tide Joe, or whatever your name was. Dogs will win by 20 or more in Tuscaloosa this year. Book it. Take my voice. Take this video and share it everywhere you want. I'm good with being a prophet. They're going to come to Tuscaloosa. You're going to lose by 20 or more. Book it.
And so we're going to use some of these sound clips on the social media this next week. we expect to have Alabama right back up on the delusional fan alert because
you know it.
Those guys are coming from everywhere to take their shots at the dog show, and it sounds so familiar, like you said, a familiar refrain.
Yeah,
and we are ready for it because I think we're pretty comfortable where we sit right now as a program. And Alabama will tell you that there's a lot of skepticism, and they haven't done it under the board. The board's not really led his own team in Division I. He's never been anywhere longer than 2 years, so that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. So it's going to be learning from all. We always all are going to try to kind of learn what the board and his program is all about, what his culture is, and how he prepares. Does he prepare to the level you have to in the SEC week in and week out? Can you have these players buy in and give them tough love and send them on their way when they are not?
He can't give tough love. That's the thing. He's a player's coach, and I don't think that works with thoroughbred racehorses. It just doesn't.
One thing we're gonna know, we're gonna find out, and we're
that's
excited.
Right.
Week four, Georgia goes to Tuscaloosa, and after that game, I think we're gonna hear a lot of these, or we're gonna cash in on a lot of receipts again. And I don't like to rehash these games over and over and talk about why which team won and which team lost. I just know that Georgia and Alabama are very good programs, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and you don't make excuses either way.
You know, it's funny. Alabama can't get over an injury to a wide receiver. Ohio State cannot get over an injury to a wide receiver. And Tennessee can't get over long grass and
in rainy conditions.
Rainy conditions. But it's amazing to me that both Ohio State and Alabama literally claim to have lost a national championship because they lost one little receiver. That's just sad. And that's the reason they're not winning national titles anymore, is because it's just a loser mentality.
So delusion is a fixed false belief that doesn't change in light of conflicting evidence.
They don't know reality from their dream worlds, and they won't go outside and play.
A fixed false belief that is not grounded in reality.
I'll encourage you fans to find those comments on our Twitter and read through them. We just gave you a few of them.
Yeah.
And it'll read much better when you go through it and see, because there's other fans involved in that conversation too, back and forth. But this one guy, Roll Tide Joe, he was feeling it. He was feeling it today. And we had some fun with him. I don't know who got the last word in. I stopped following after a while. I feel like we made our case pretty well.
He did the thing where you've beaten the person and they're not getting any support. He shared his own comment. So he had commented on one of ours, and then he shared his own comment. At that point, we've won.
Oh, and, he's trying to get the cavalry to come on up. Hey,
he's trying to get the cavalry on to come on and fight with him. But we basically blew out his starting wide receiver's knee with that exchange. And Alabama can't play without a wide receiver.
They can't. Like I said, I encourage you folks to find us on Twitter. You can find us at the Dawgs Show Pod. Please do that. It's getting more spicy each coming day, each coming week.
You can feel it warming up. You can feel it. Yeah.
It's getting a little hot.
Yeah.
So you can find us on the Dawgs Show Pod, TikTok, Twitter, and the YouTubes as well. And if you're just listening to this right now on just through the audio, pull us up on YouTube and watch the videos. There's going to be a lot more stuff on there.
And a lot better conversation. We usually have very robust conversations on the YouTube page. Yeah.
Fun. Folks, next week, we'll see what the future holds. I am headed out of town, to say the least. I catch a flight tomorrow and from Atlanta, hit Seattle late afternoon, and then I'll be in Anchorage by late tomorrow night. And me and the missus going to do a little fishing. Me and Smooch and his bride went with us last year.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm sure they'll go maybe next year. But this year, just me and my wife, and got an RV headed down to Kenai Peninsula. Going to do some fishing in the Russian River and in the Kenai River, and eat a lot of good food and drink probably some good whiskey, some good beer. Hopefully not get attacked by those grizzly bears, because
I hope you do. I'll be honest.
The stories are true. Alaska is like there's no guardrails. You can see a beaten path where you think, oh, yeah, this is fine. Everybody takes this trail. It's a hike. You hike in Georgia. You think enough people's hiked on it that you probably won't die as long as you don't do anything stupid. Yeah, a bear can pop right out, and they don't warn you. There's no,
or you can run off a cliff. There are no warning labels in Alaska,
there isn't. You just everything's at your own risk, and that is assumed that you know that when you go. So,
and if not, you'll be dead soon. They don't have to worry.
My wife learned to be an ER nurse when she was there, and that's why she is one of the best. She is one of the best to do it because she learned the ropes in Alaska and dealing with a lot of weird injuries, and you see them. Well, hopefully, go ahead.
I was going to say, bring me some Russian River salmon, man.
There you go. And hopefully, if it works out, I'm going to do live on location, record next midweek next week, Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe from Homer, maybe from the Salty Dog. Who knows?
Yeah. Hey, we're going to get content up next week. We just don't know what it'll look like, but there'll be something dropped for the show next week. Hopefully it's Troup from the Salty Dog. That would be amazing.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks again for Coach Hayes for coming on and doing such a great job.
Yeah.
Breaking down that stuff. We appreciate you, buddy. And Coach Hayes Hudl, you can find him there and Dog Dispatch. All right, Smooch, I enjoyed it. Take us to the house, man.
Let's do it, man.
We're not practicing to beat somebody. We're practicing to beat everybody.
This is the Dog Show with Troup and Smooch.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.